Today on the Matt Walsh Show, why is a confessed child killer about to walk free in Oregon, even after being convicted and sentenced to life in prison for his crime? We'll talk about the latest case that shows how leftist radicals have destroyed the justice system and the country along with it. Also, the Trump administration has apparently abandoned plans to give amnesty to illegal aliens who work for farms and hotels, which is great news. And the more we hear about the assassination of those politicians in Minnesota, the less the story makes sense. We'll talk about the latest. Plus, with the summer comes more viral videos of the bizarre, disturbing creatures known as Disney adults. We'll cover that in today's Daily Cancellation. All of that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity, that the American dream starts with purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote human flourishing and create a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. By honoring your career calling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself to glorify God. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 340 academic programs as of September 2024, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. On December 17th of 2013, a 15-month-old girl by the name of Kamaya Flores was found dead with her ribs broken in the home of her father, 25-year-old Darian McWoods. Now, according to medical examiners, the toddler had enough methadone in her body to, quote, slow or stop her breathing. And during McWoods' 3-week trial in Portland, there were a couple of theories that were presented as to how this happened. For one thing, McWoods had a habit of mixing methadone with Capri Suns, so there was a chance that his daughter drank one of the mixtures by accident. Alternatively, prosecutors found evidence that McWoods would occasionally give small doses of the drug to his children in order to put them to sleep. And whichever theory you believe, or if you believe some other theory, McWoods was clearly responsible for the fact that his daughter had somehow ingested a highly lethal synthetic opioid. She also had a trace amount of methamphetamine in her blood. And additionally, on top of the methadone and meth in her system, the girl had also suffered, quote, abusive injuries consistent with asphyxia, as well as a laceration of the liver and facial bruising. Those injuries may have been caused by McWoods' habit of, quote, plugging her nose and holding her down until she fell asleep. In other words, Darian McWoods killed his daughter in an extremely depraved manner. There's just no doubt about that whatsoever. And in any sane society, he would have been executed a long time ago. But that's not what happened in this case. Instead, McWoods was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole, following his conviction for murder by abuse, first-degree criminal mistreatment, and witness tampering. Now, at the time, the grandmother and great-grandmother of the 15-month-old victim told reporters that they were relieved that McWoods couldn't harm any more children and that they finally had some closure. Watch.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled cause, do find our verdicts upon the counts submitted to us as follows. Count 1, murder by abuse, guilty. Count 2, murder by abuse, guilty.
I feel like it's kind of the start of some closure. You know, the healing is a continual process. It's something that just, you never really totally heal over, you know, but it's the start of the closure. And I feel the same relief Raquel does, but I also feel relief that he won't be able to harm any other children. That's a big relief for me.
That footage is from July of 2018. So if you're keeping track, 5 years after Darian McWoods killed his own daughter, prosecutors in Portland finally decided to bring a case and secure a conviction. And the family, belatedly, is relieved that this depraved, evil man is in prison. But the story didn't end there. And what happened next is a case study in how equity and quote-unquote restorative justice works in places like Portland. Even in cases where someone has already been convicted by a jury, and even when their crime is to torture and brutally murder a child, left-wing prosecutors and judges in Portland will still do everything in their power to ensure that the killer is somehow allowed to go free. They do not rest. They do not feel any sense of shame or demonstrate any interest in protecting the public or protecting kids at any point in the process. And that's why, instead of spending the rest of his life in prison, Darian McWoods is going to be a free man in less than 2 years. Yes, you heard that correctly. After killing his own daughter and being convicted for it, Darian McWoods will walk free in about 1.5 years. And in total, he will have spent just a few years in prison for torturing and murdering his own young child. Now, to understand how this happened and how it implicates the entire so-called justice system in places like Portland, we need to go back to 2022, and that's when a court of appeals in Oregon decided to overturn Darian McWoods' conviction. Watch this.
Nearly 4 years to the day after Darian McWoods received a life sentence in the death of his 15-month-old daughter, the murder conviction is overturned. Heard in the Court of Appeals, it was revealed the prospective jury's only 2 black jurors were removed by prosecutors, and McWoods, a black man, was found guilty, producing concerns that underlying racial bias could have had an impact on this case.
Everyone's acknowledging has these sort of baked in or structural biases.
In 2018, McWoods was found guilty of multiple charges, including murder by abuse, after his 15-month-old daughter, Kamaya Flores, died in December of 2013. An autopsy not only found methadone in her system, but also broken ribs and proof of compression asphyxiation, meaning she was crushed until she couldn't breathe.
It's frustrating to have to go through it again, and it's like ripping a Band-Aid off over and over again.
Her grandmother, Raquel Flores-Volstake, says she's ready to go through a trial again if she has to, but worries about the impact on her children, including Kamaya's little sister, who she adopted.
The ruling from the appellate court was that McWoods didn't receive a fair trial because during jury selection, the prosecution prevented 2 black people from serving on the jury. Before we get into the specifics of this ruling and how absurd it is, it's important to realize that during jury selection, there are 2 ways that prosecutors and defense attorneys can veto a member of the jury and prevent them from serving. The first possible reason is for cause. This means that the prosecution has to show the person is incompetent or severely biased or unfit in some way. The other way is to issue a challenge. The prosecution doesn't have to explain the reason for this challenge. They can just look at a juror, decide that they have a bad feeling about him, and issue a challenge that gets him kicked off immediately. The catch is that prosecutors and defense attorneys are only allowed a small number of these challenges. In Oregon, for most trials, you only get 3 challenges. That's it. And therefore, you have to use them wisely. Additionally, you can't violate the Constitution, so you can't challenge all of the black jurors simply because you want to discriminate against black people. Even though data suggests that black jurors are substantially more sympathetic to black defendants, you still don't get to kick black jurors off the jury simply because they're black. If the defense thinks you're doing that, they can complain to the judge about it, and they can attempt to reverse your challenge. That's exactly what happened during the trial of Darian McWoods. The prosecutors got rid of 2 black jurors using their challenges, and on the spot, predictably, the defense claimed that racism was involved, but the trial court judge disagreed. He thought that it was completely reasonable to get rid of these 2 individuals. But on appeal, the court in Oregon decided that, indeed, the dismissal of these 2 jurors was racist, and therefore McWoods gets a new trial for killing his daughter. Now, if you read the ruling from the appellate court, you immediately realize what a farce it is. They did not uncover any evidence that the prosecutors had secret racial motivations. They didn't uncover that, the prosecutors were posting on some secret KKK message board or something. Instead, the appellate court determined that some white jurors were allowed to stay on the jury, even though they gave somewhat similar answers on their questionnaire as the 2 black jurors who got kicked off. And therefore, the appellate court inferred that the prosecutors must have been motivated by racism. That's it. That's their entire justification for throwing out this conviction. This logic, such as it is, falls apart the moment you realize that answers on jury questionnaires are just one of many ways the prosecutors can size up a potential member of the jury. Another way is to look at them. And that's what happened in this case. Here's what the prosecutor told the trial court judge right after issuing a challenge against juror number 6, who's a black man. Quote, "Frankly, he showed up to jury service wearing a shirt that says, 'I have issues.' I don't know what that means, but that in and of itself is also concerning to the state." Yes, the black juror showed up with a shirt reading, "I have issues." That's how he walked into the courtroom for jury selection for a high-profile murder trial. Now, in looking online, I found a few potential matching T-shirts that would fit this description. And you can see some of it there. There's a lot of Deadpool stuff, but also more generic "I have issues" shirt, as you can see. In any event, whatever this shirt looked like exactly, and we don't know exactly which shirt it was, it's a safe bet that juror number 6 should not have been seated on the jury for this reason alone. There are really only 3 options to explain this guy's decision to wear this shirt to trial. The first option, of course, is that he actually does have issues, in which case he's admitting to being disqualified. The second option is that he doesn't really have issues, but he wants to get out of jury duty, so he wore that shirt as a way of doing that. The third option is that he's an adult man wearing a Deadpool T-shirt to court because he's actually an overgrown child. And in all these cases, juror number 6 clearly should have been tossed immediately. This is a trial for a man who's killed a child. We need serious adults, serious people on the jury to deliberate and look at the evidence, not guys who are wearing stuff like that. And that's not even getting into the fact that on his jury questionnaire, he stated that it was, quote, possible that he might, quote, self-impose a higher standard of proof in a murder trial like this one. And we're also not getting into the fact that on his questionnaire, the juror said that he agreed with the statement that, quote, DNA evidence is unreliable. Keep in mind, juror number 6 was the only juror in the entire jury pool who admitted to the prosecution that he didn't trust DNA evidence, which seems like a valid, independent reason to kick him off the jury in this case if you are the prosecution. And again, it has nothing to do with skin color whatsoever. The same is true for the other black member of the jury who was kicked off. That's juror number 9. And here's the reason the prosecutors issued a challenge against him. Quote, he leaned towards strongly agreeing that he believes that in our criminal justice system, innocent people are routinely being found guilty. And then yesterday, he indicated that he was more likely to excuse behavior if the child was injured due to reckless conduct as opposed to intentional. There was quite a long discussion about that issue, and he was one of the few that actually volunteered and commented on a distinction in his mind between looking less concerned about conduct that occurred recklessly versus intentionally injuring this child, close quote. Again, we have a clear way to distinguish juror number 9 from all the others. He engaged in a long discussion in which he said that he would excuse reckless behavior instead of intentional behavior, while also repeating propaganda about how the criminal justice system is biased or whatever. So prosecutors had a very good reason to get rid of this guy as well. And that's exactly what they did. But on appeal, a 3-judge panel in Oregon concluded that the prosecutors must have been motivated by racism. Concerning juror number 6, the judges simply pointed to the fact that other members of the jury had turned in similar questionnaires. They completely ignored his T-shirt and his comment on DNA evidence being unreliable. And concerning juror number 9, the judges ignored the entire conversation about recklessness. Here's what they wrote in their opinion, quote, with respect to concerns about statements made by juror number 9, we cannot conclude based on the record that juror number 9 responded as the prosecutor argued he did. In other words, the appeals court said it couldn't verify the conversation, so they're just going to pretend it never happened. They're going to infer that the trial court judge, who was actually in the courtroom witnessing all of this, must have been wrong somehow. And then they're going to accuse the prosecutors of being racist, primarily because they happen to exclude the only 2 black people who were around during jury selection. So they're not going to, they won't trust the conversation because they weren't there for it. And yet they can infer this invisible motivation, based on reading the minds of the prosecutors. So that they can confirm, but not the conversation that the judge was there for. The statement says, quote, the plausibility of the state's race-neutral reasons for excusing an otherwise qualified black juror decreased with the second challenge. That implausibility is evidence of purposeful discrimination, close quote. This is, so their judgment that it's implausible that you could have legitimate reason to get rid of 2 black members of the jury is itself evidence of a competing claim that they were motivated by racism. So there are so many problems with that logic. It's not logic. That doesn't work at all. Just because one claim to you in your mind is implausible, which it isn't. There's nothing implausible about finding reasons to get rid of 2 jurors. But even if it was, that in and of itself is not evidence for this other claim that you have no evidence for whatsoever, which is that they're racist. Now, this is yet another manifestation of the left's tendency, which you may have noticed by now, to infer racism simply on the basis of disparate impact. If something affects black people, then no matter what, it has to be racist. If you can ascertain that it affects black people in some case, in some circumstance, more than it affected white people, then it has to be racist. There cannot be any other possible reason behind it. And the people who are responsible must be white supremacists. That's how they approach every situation like this. They work their way backwards from there to rationalize their pre-existing conclusion. They start with the conclusion that any disparate impact must be racism, and then that's where they begin, and they work backwards from there. And that's what the appellate court did there. But only one judge wrote this opinion, and I want to give you one guess. With everything you've heard, when you think about the judge who was on this panel who wrote this opinion, what do you think this judge looked like? Let's a little thought experiment here. Close your eyes and try to picture this judge's appearance. She just threw out a child killer's conviction because the prosecutors dismissed 2 black members of the jury who were obviously unqualified. She's claiming that it's racism. She wants to put a black child killer back on the street. What do you come up with? Now, if you have any capacity for pattern recognition whatsoever, you probably don't even need me to show you the photo, but in case you do, here it is. You can look at it right there. And again, you just knew she would look exactly like this. It was never in doubt. The most unspeakable atrocities and hideous evils the world has ever seen are supported, encouraged, and facilitated by women who look exactly like this with that exact haircut. And this case is no exception. Now, this particular iteration of the gay feminist destroyer is named Judge Jody Mooney. She's a proud member, of course, of the LGBT plus community, which is another thing you could have guessed. When she was appointed to the bench by the governor of Oregon back in 2019, she stated, quote, "I'm firmly committed to following the rule of law in a way that supports a diverse and open society." She added that laws must be, quote, "enforced equitably." Not equally, equitably. And with this case, Judge Jody Mooney illustrated exactly what equitable enforcement of the law looks like. She's bringing some diversity to the streets of Portland in the form of child killers. And at the same time, to be as fair as possible to this judge, who has since retired, by the way, she didn't actually secure the release of Darian McWoods. She made that possible, but what she did was she threw out his conviction and sent it back to the lower court for a new trial. And, if you're kind of a naive person, you might think, well, that's not necessarily a huge deal because the new trial is guaranteed to have the same result as the first, given that this guy definitely, absolutely murdered his child. There's no doubt about that. Certainly, as you saw, the family members of the victim anticipated that there would be a new trial and that this child killer would be convicted again with a new jury, but that's not what happened. Instead, prosecutors in Portland used the opportunity to give Darian McWoods a plea deal. He simply had to plead guilty to manslaughter and criminal mistreatment. And in exchange, he gets to leave prison in less than 2 years. To be clear, there was no reason for this plea deal. It wasn't as though some critical piece of evidence had disappeared or some other piece of evidence had appeared that they didn't have before. They just offered it out of the blue. One of the lead prosecutors who offered this deal was Multnomah County Chief Deputy District Attorney Amanda Nadel, and we'll put her picture up on the screen as well. In his statement following this plea deal, Nadel remarked, quote, "In her short life, Kamaya brought so much light and love to her family. Since her death, her family has remained steadfast in their commitment to ensuring justice was brought for Kamaya. I'm grateful that Mr. McWoods took accountability for his role in Kamaya's death by pleading guilty to manslaughter in the first degree and criminal mistreatment in the first degree. I hope the finality of this resolution will provide closure to the victim's family." That is one of the most sadistic statements you will ever see, especially after watching that footage from the family that we played earlier. This is closure, is letting the killer out of prison in a couple of years. That's how justice works in Portland. Multiply it by a dozen different Soros DAs, and you get a sense of how the left-wing prosecutors conduct business everywhere all the time. Even when they secure convictions in high-profile murders like this one, doesn't last very long. They wait until the media attention dies down, and then they sabotage their own cases. I mean, you cannot fully appreciate the extent of the lawlessness in cities like Los Angeles and Seattle and Portland and New York and the reasons for it until you understand this dynamic. The most heinous crimes imaginable mean nothing to these people. All that matters is creating disorder. They know their power depends on it. And the case of Darian McWoods demonstrates once again that nothing, not even the torture and murder of a child, is going to deter them. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. You know what's fascinating? When your metabolism is working properly, you feel the benefits in literally every aspect of your life. I discovered an incredible tool that gives me insights to create a healthy metabolism for my body. It's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It measures your metabolism through your breath, and the app tells you if you're burning fat or carbs. It then provides personalized guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. Using it could be simpler. I breathe into my Lumen first thing in the morning to understand my metabolism, get a personalized nutrition plan for the day. I can also check before and after workouts and meals to know exactly what's happening in my body in real time. Here's why this matters. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns food into fuel. When it's optimized, you'll experience better energy levels, improved fitness results, and even better sleep. Lumen gives you all the recommendations you need to improve your metabolic health, helping you make informed decisions about your nutrition and your lifestyle. The warmer months are coming. Spring back into your health and fitness. Go to lumen.me/Walsh to get 10% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Walsh for 10% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. We'll start with an update, a very welcome update to a story that we've been tracking closely. Breitbart reports President Donald Trump's deputies have reversed the short-lived ICE exemption policy for hotel, farm, and restaurant companies, according to the Washington Post. The newspaper reported the ICE reversal late on Monday. Officials from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, including its Homeland Security Investigations Division, told agency leaders in a call Monday that agents must continue conducting immigration raids at agricultural businesses, hotels, and restaurants, according to 2 people familiar with the call. The new instructions were shared in an 11 a.m. call to representatives from 30 field offices across the country. On Monday, Homeland Security spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin told Fox, "We continue to enforce the law. There is no safe harbor. The restoration of Trump's original policy is good news for ordinary Americans, millions of whom have been pushed aside by employers' preference for the desperate migrants. Wealthy donors, investors, and lobbyists lost the round," the Post noted. Businesses and industry groups have been heavily lobbying the White House, as well as the Senate and congressional offices, pleading for an end to the enforcement crackdown. Rebecca Shai, chief executive of the American Business Immigration Coalition, said the pause officials put in place last week had signaled to many employers that the president was open to a solution. So this is great news. I mean, it's absolutely the right decision. There should be no exemption for any illegal aliens at all. Least of all should there be sweeping exemptions for thousands of them at a time. If you're in the country illegally, you got to go. I mean, the one single factor that should determine whether you're deported is whether you're here illegally. That's the only thing that should matter. That's it. That's all. That's all that matters. And that policy will now be restored from the sound of it, which is very good. And it also, it's why it's important to push back and make your voice heard. Remember what I said yesterday? This plan, is being floated by the White House. There's a reason they send out these trial balloons rather than just implementing the policy without all the back and forth discussion. They want to hear from us. And so we have a real ability to influence public policy in this way. And by we, I mean, the voters, the base, America First conservatives. And we should have that influence. This is a constitutional republic. Our leaders are supposed to represent our interests. And and Donald Trump should care about what the people that voted him into office want and what their opinions are, because they put him in office for a reason. And that's why you have to speak up. And it's also why conservatives who scold you for speaking up or tell you that you should never criticize Trump under any circumstance, that you should trust the plan and so on, should be ignored. I mean, America First obviously does not mean just simply accepting whatever Trump decides to do or whatever idea is floated out there as something he might do. We're not morally obligated to say, well, okay, I mean, if that's what he wants to do, whatever he decides to do is obviously the right thing because he can never be wrong. No, it's America first, not Trump first. And Trump is human. He can be wrong about things. And if he's wrong, then we should say so. That doesn't mean, you don't have to go nuclear on him. You don't have to declare that it would have been better to vote for Kamala or whatever. I mean, nothing would be better than Kamala would never be the better option. But we should say, if you disagree with something, with a move that's being made or a potential move, then you say, hey, I think this is really wrong. I think it's a very bad idea. Here's why. and say it loud enough to be heard. And one thing about the Trump administration is that it's extremely tuned in to what the base is saying. I know that for a fact, and but you don't need to have any secret insider knowledge to know that. It's like very obvious. So the base should speak up, as they did here, and I think there's no question that the pushback from the base is a big part of the reason why this decision was reversed. And that's a very good thing, and that goes for everything else going on in the news right now too. That goes for the current foreign policy situation as well. I mean, I remain hopeful that Trump will not go to war with Iran. As I've been saying for days now, he ran on a platform of non-intervention. He ran on a platform of, he ran specifically against the neocon policy of regime change wars in the Middle East and all that. And I remain hopeful that we'll stay that course. But if you don't want the U.S. to get involved in another Middle East regime change war, then you should speak up. That's not anyone who says, oh, it's disloyal. That's not you being that's a traitor to Trump or something. It doesn't work that way. That's you making your voice heard and making it clear where you stand as an American. And where you stand matters, okay? It matters to our leaders, and it should. But you're an American citizen and a voter, and so what you think does matter, and you should voice that and be clear about it, as many people were here, and this is the outcome. Okay, we're now learning more information about the Minnesota shooting suspect Vance Belter and what exactly transpired before he shot and killed Melissa Hortman and her husband. Here's the latest update from the FBI. They gave a press conference yesterday, and here it is, and then we'll talk about it.
Belter approached Representative Hortman's home, again dressed as a police officer, wearing the tactical vest and body armor, and wearing that hyper-realistic mask. He was armed and carrying a flashlight. Before he entered the home, 2 Brooklyn Park police officers arrived at the scene. They too had been dispatched to check on Representative Hortman after learning of the shooting of Senator Hoffman. When they arrived at the scene, they saw Belter's black SUV parked in the driveway with the emergency lights flashing, and they saw Belter standing in front of the house several feet from the door. When Belter saw the officers get out of the car, he drew his weapon and began firing. He rushed into the house through the front door, firing into it. He repeatedly fired into the house, and when he entered, he murdered Representative Hortman and her husband, Mark. The Brooklyn Park police officers fired at Belter as he rushed into the home, but he escaped into the home and out the back.
This is why I haven't really said anything about this case publicly. The whole story is bizarre. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think there's a lot we still haven't been told. I don't want to speculate. I also don't want to take what we're being told at face value at this point. It strikes me that there's a lot more to this story. There's so much about the official narrative that just makes no sense. And even the story about what transpired at the Hortman household doesn't make sense. So the police arrive on the scene. It's not clear to me how they knew that he would be there, but they catch him before he goes into the house. And so you'd think that's like the end of the story. You think that, okay, thank God they've averted this terrible, this continued catastrophe, because they caught him before they went into the house. And yet somehow he was able to go in still and commit these murders while the police were there and already exchanged gunfire with him. How did that happen? What were the cops doing when he went inside the home? Why didn't they follow him into the home? I mean, the home is occupied. There are people in there. You apparently know what he intends to do. I mean, that'd be pretty obvious from the context. He went inside and then you waited outside for him? It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes no sense. Very little about this story makes sense. Although we do know a few things. We can say a few things for sure. And one of them is that an assailant assassinated a politician and tried to kill others. We know that for certain. Now, the why and the how and a lot of the other particulars, I think we still don't really know, but the what is clear. And so we know that for one reason or another, this is another example of political violence, of violence directed at political figures. And that should obviously concern us greatly. The Telegraph today has an article with this headline: "School shootings have become routine. Political assassinations are next. U.S. is trapped in a vortex of violence with little hope of escape." Well, yeah. I mean, we've talked about so-called assassination culture, as the media has come to dub it. We've talked about that before, and that's where we are. We're at a place where political violence is commonplace. And I suspect that violence against politicians, which is already happening with some frequency, will only happen more and more often. It's only going to get worse, a lot worse. I mean, I'll tell you that right now. I'll tell you this. We are going to have an actual assassination of some national political figure soon. Now, we obviously almost had that twice with the targeted attempted assassinations of Trump. But I think we're going to have a successful one, and it's going to happen soon. I don't have any intelligence to that effect. Obviously, I'm not saying this based on any kind of information that I have. I'm just looking at the trends like anybody else can, and I'm looking at where the culture is, and it just seems obvious to me. And by the way, when I say political figure, it doesn't have to be a politician necessarily. I felt for a while that we're going to soon have, and I'm frankly surprised it hasn't happened already, that you have some famous commentator or political personality ends up getting killed. I mean, it just feels inevitable, and it could be anyone. I mean, there are certainly some who would very much like for it to be me, and who knows? I'm not making any kind of prophecy right now, but these kinds of trends, it's just looking at the trends, and trends like this don't reverse themselves suddenly. You don't have violence of this type ramping up only for it to stop midstream and then go the other direction. That's not the way it has ever worked historically, and there's no reason to think that it's going to work that way now. And that's why I keep going back to Luigi Mangione. And you're probably tired of me talking about it by now, but I truly believe that with that case, the culture crossed a certain threshold. We crossed the Rubicon, and there's no going back. There's no way out now but through it. What made the case so significant is not that a violent psycho killed somebody. That happens every day in this country, unfortunately, and it's always going to happen, unfortunately. The significance is that there was such a huge outpouring of support, of shameless, unabashed support for a first-degree murder. I mean, we've seen murderers being supported before in this country. Also, again, unfortunately, that's always happened and always will happen to some extent. But usually in the past, when people were showing support for criminals and murderers, there was at least an attempt to pretend or argue that, well, the person didn't really commit murder. It didn't really happen. He's innocent. Now, so in the OJ case, for example, but even the people that were defending OJ, at least ostensibly, they were claiming that, it was set up because it's racism and whatever else. In this case, there was no pretense at all of that. Nobody was saying, oh no, he's innocent, he's being set up. He didn't really do it. It's like, no, he did it. We can see him do it. He 100% did it. But you had people saying, yeah, he did it, and I'm just glad that he did. It's first-degree murder. Absolutely. He's not innocent at all, but I'm happy that it happened. And that was the argument that you had from a large number of people. And to me, it felt like it's very much an escalation from the kind of rhetoric that we've heard in the past defending murderers and criminals. And it wasn't just anonymous accounts with anime logos that were saying this. This was prominent mainstream people in some cases. And when I saw that, I said, okay, well, we're here now. Murdering somebody for political reasons is something that apparently millions of Americans, or at least a vocal preponderance of Americans, are ready to accept and even to celebrate. And that's where we are. And you can find plenty of examples in history, plenty of precedent going back to, all the way back to ancient Rome, going to the early Soviet Union, going to Mexico during the Mexican Revolution in the 1900s, or Mexico now, frankly. Lebanon, etc. You find plenty of examples of countries where political violence and assassinations become increasingly common, become a part of the culture, and we are not exempt. I think as Americans, we've kind of labored under this assumption for a long time, mostly an unspoken assumption, although sometimes spoken, that we're exempt from these sorts of deep historical trends and realities, the kind of it can't happen here syndrome, but it can, and it has. and a guy putting on a police uniform to go door to door assassinating politicians. Whoever this guy was, however he pulled it off and why ever he did it, the fact that it was done is a very big deal. I think that's obvious to everyone. And I hate to be a doomsayer, but it portends very ominous things for the future. It just does. So be prepared. Arm yourself is all I can say. All right. The account End Wokeness has this clip reporting that Chicago Mayor Johnson, Brandon Johnson, plans to hand out race-based grants to black residents as a kind of slavery reparations. And here he is talking about this proposal. Watch.
Our way will bring to black residents in reclaiming ownership of our own communities. That is the spirit of Juneteenth, you all. It is about reflecting on our past. Other cultures are taught to never forget. We need to be reminded as blacks here in Chicago and America, remembering our past and working towards a more just future. Investing in black is not a criminal act. Sister Zakiya says she need a witness, so I'm gonna say it again. Investing in black is not a criminal act.
Investing in black, he says. Now, you might think that this all sounds very bad and certainly unconstitutional to have the government specifically investing in and prioritizing one race over another. You might think, well, that's a really bad thing. You're not allowed to do that. You can't do that. That's illegal. But you have to understand, it's actually okay because he came up with a fun little rhyme. There's a little known provision in the Constitution. A lot of people don't know this. Where, we have equality under the law. Usually you can't favor one race over another unless you do it in the form of a fun rhyme. And he says, what does he say? Investing in black is not a criminal act. Doesn't technically rhyme, but it's close enough. And so then it's okay because you have a rhyme. That's why he repeats the rhyme twice. That's why he says, in case anyone didn't hear, let me repeat it. Because that's the argument. I mean, you might think, well, you can't do this. But then you hear the rhyme and you go, oh, well, he rhymed it. So then it's okay. But here's the problem. Two can play at this game, What about investing in white is always right? There you go. Investing in Asian is amazing. I don't know. We'll have to work on that one. That needs some work. Asians are kind of out of luck because it's hard to rhyme Asian with something. But whites are doing well. Whites are all right. Plenty of rhymes. Invest in whites with all your might. There's another one. That one's a little weird, but actually it turns out that rhymes don't matter. You just can't do this. This is illegal. And Brandon Johnson has been, probably more than any other political leader in the country, openly flouting the laws against this kind of thing, against this governmental racism. He has openly stated time and again that he plans to use and is using the force of the government to give privileges and benefits and jobs to black people specifically. And he's even given his reason for doing it. He's even been open about what his reason is, which is that black people are morally superior to everybody else. And he said that. Remember, he said that blacks are more generous. They're the most generous people on earth. And that's why he favors them when he's hiring for his administration. I mean, none of this is remotely legal. You can't do any of this. It's not legal. You can't do it. And he has been incriminated by his own words. Will there be any consequence? Will the Justice Department step in here? I know they said that they were investigating months ago, and good. I mean, I know you have to start with an investigation, but the investigation should not take very long. He's said it himself. You can look at, okay, he's putting these policies in place to benefit black residents of the city primarily. He's disproportionately hiring black people. Well, that that alone, it's like, well, you could try to flip the disparate impact thing back on them and use their medicine and give them a dose of their own medicine. But you don't even need to do that. We don't need to speculate about, well, why is he disproportionately hiring black people for his administration? Is it racially motivated? Now, if he never said anything, then it would only be speculation. Well, in this case, he said, oh yeah, no, I'm doing it because they're black. Well, why are you doing that? Oh, because they're better. I'm doing it because black people are better. That's why. Yeah, you need to investigate, but I don't know. The investigation should take about 45 minutes, and then we can start pressing charges against this guy, and that needs to happen. Like actual criminal charges. Throw this guy in. Yes, throw the mayor in prison for this, because that's where he belongs. He's breaking the law. And of course, we all know that if it went the other way, that there'd be no question that there'd be criminal charges. I mean, immediately. He wouldn't even finish the sentence. Okay, if this was the other way, he couldn't even finish the rhyme before the feds were breaking down his door and hauling him to prison. So that's the way that would go. All right. Finally, fourth headline. We never make it to 4 in the 5 headline segment. And you're going to wish that I had stopped at 3. You know, I get hassled sometimes, including recently, about, well, you say 5 headlines, but it's never actually 5 headlines. I've already explained that, well, it's 5. It's, you know, there's a spiritual reality that transcends the physical when it comes to 5 headlines. And I shouldn't need to explain any more than that. But also, you should be grateful. You should be grateful that I never actually make it to 5, because here's what happens. The more I go, the more it falls apart as we continue. Because now that I'm going to 4, this is what you get. What you're going to get is a Will Smith song. This is what you get. And I just want to play this because it's getting a lot of attention on social media, mainly negative attention. Will Smith is 57 years old, has a new song out. He just put out a new song. I don't know that he was still making new music. I think he hasn't made any new, I don't really know. I haven't checked. I think he has not made any new music in a long time. But he's out now, 57 years old. He's got new music out. People seem to hate it. Is it really that bad? Well, let's find out. We'll play it. This is a song called, I think, I Like Pretty Girls. And this, again, was made by a 57-year-old man. Is this the new Getting Jiggy With It? Can Will Smith reach those artistic heights ever again? So many of us have asked, many of us have wondered. We've been waiting for anyone, those of us who grew up in the 90s, we've been waiting for anyone to reach the artistic heights of getting jiggy with it. And no one ever has. That was the pinnacle of American culture, and the artistic output of Americans was there. That was it. Can he reach that again? Let's listen and find out.
I like pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls. I love pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls. I like pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls. I love pretty girls. Girls, 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 girls. You don't gotta wait in line tonight. You're too fine for the line tonight. 5 plus 5, you a dime tonight. It's a full house, better play your cards right. I'ma post your pick if you pose. Make one phone call, you in vogue. Head, shoulders, knees, toes. Hold up, wait, pose. I'm about to do some investing. I'll spend it on you and your bestie. You and your twin on a jet ski. I'll change your life if you let me. I like pretty girls.
Okay, so no, he can't. That's the answer to that. He can't reach. That's not, it's kind of fascinating. I mean, it's an awful song. It's horrific. It really is. But you almost want to give it some credit because the bar is so low. The bar is in the ground. The bar is deep. The bar is so low, you have to go through a volcano to get to the bar. That's how low it's like down in the earth's mantle is the bar, when it comes to, pop culture at this point. And so you want to say, well, at least it's heterosexual. At least it's that. It's one thing we could say about the song, you would hope, is that, okay, it's about pretty girls. It's a heterosexual. And this is Will Smith. I mean, I'm kind of like, I'm sort of impressed that he's singing about girls. It's a man singing about pretty girls. Now, it's a little weird for a 57-year-old man to be talking about pretty girls as opposed to women. But, that aside, it's heterosexual. So that's something. And then you watch the video and somehow, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I mean it in a medical sense. Somehow it's the gayest thing you've ever seen. Somehow, I don't know. It's like he may as well be singing about men. It's the gayest straight song of all time. And on top of that, the song is about pretty girls, and yet there are none in the video. The women, no offense to them, they're not like, they're not what you would think of when you think of models for a song like this. It looks like, and they're all like in their 50s. I mean, all these women, these are women who are, not necessarily in the best shape. No crime there. Look like they're in their 50s. The song is called Pretty Girls, not even women. And it looks like, it looks like he went back and found the models that were in the video for the song Miami in 1997. And he just got those same women to be in this video too. I don't know. But the main point is this, to the extent that there's any point that needs to be made here at all, which there isn't. The point is that there has been this is the fascinating part. There's no artistic growth at all. Will Smith is 57 years old and still trying to make the exact same kind of music that he made 30 years ago. It hasn't changed. It has not evolved. He has not grown as an artist at all. And there's something very fitting about that. Will Smith in that way is emblematic of the culture generally, of pop culture in particular. And look, I know I'm unfairly labeled as the guy who hates everything. I don't hate everything. I hate a lot of things, but I don't hate everything. And there's plenty of films that come out that I love. There are plenty of TV shows that I like. There's plenty of music that I love. Even music that current contemporary music, a lot of it, but pop, like mainstream pop culture in particular, I think Will Smith he's not relevant to it anymore, but he's emblematic of it in that there's no growth. There's no change. There's no growth for me either. For example, I still have not learned to turn my phone off when I do a show. So a lot of us are not growing. But there's no, and that's why the shelf life for a lot of these artists is so short. Because they can do one thing in particular. They can capture like one mood, and it's a mood and a thing that only makes sense when you're 23 years old, but they can't grow beyond that. And that's what you see here. Like, it should be interesting to see what Will Smith comes up with at this age, right? It should be. When you hear that Will Smith is making new music, you should go, oh, wow, okay, well, that's interesting. He's had a lot of life experiences since he was making hits in the 90s, right? He's led an interesting life. Not really an enviable life, not a life that I would necessarily want, but it's an interesting life, right? It's all those experiences that now, and he's making new music. Like, what is he? He's going to bring all of that into this art. That's interesting. He was a blockbuster megastar actor, and then he became a Scientologist, and his acting career fell off, and he married a bald woman and became a cuckold, and he assaulted Chris Rock. His son is crazy, walking around dressed like a building on the red carpet. There's a lot of stuff going on with this guy. Let's see how he channels all of that into his art. And then you see it, and it's just this. It's just him talking about how he likes pretty girls. It's the same stuff he was doing when he was 25 years old, and now he's almost 60. So when you're wondering, how has he grown as an artist? Well, the answer is not at all. 0% growth over the course of like 35 years. And I find that, it's sort of fascinating and sad at the same time. And I think we probably said really more than enough about this topic. Let's move on. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And that's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag, period, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Just switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk this month, and a portion of every sale will go to provide these high-quality flags to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill in half. The average family saves over $1,000 a year. I've been using my Pure Talk phone for a while now and have enjoyed the reliable coverage for work here at the Daily Wire. Just go to puretalk.com/Walsh to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Walsh to support veterans and to switch to America's wireless company, Pure Talk. If you think Daily Wire Plus is just a subscription to watch some shows, think again. The Daily Wire is building a home for people who've had enough lies, enough riots, enough cultural collapse disguised as compassion. We're not here to comment. We're here to fight. With journalism exposing the lies with uncensored content that puts truth back in the spotlight, you're not just tuning in, you're linking arms with a community that fights back. And when we fight, we win. Join now at dailywireplus.com. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. We are now in the season where we will begin to see more and more videos featuring those disturbing and rather bewildering creatures known as Disney adults. We've discussed Disney adults on this show before, although from my memory, they have never made it into the daily cancellation. And somehow, this is an oversight that I aim to rectify today. It turns out I've canceled my own wife during this segment more often than I've canceled Disney adults. So the scales must now be balanced. And these people landed on my radar once again, thanks to a recent viral video. Now, technically, this is not a video from Disney World. This is from Universal Orlando, just 10 miles west of Disney. But the phenomenon captured in the footage is the same that is seen in any video of Disney adults. So here we see a crowd of people rushing through the gates of at the grand opening of something called Epic Universe at Universal. Epic Universe, ChatGPT tells me, is a sprawling, immersive theme park that introduces 5 distinct worlds, each inspired by beloved franchises and original concepts. In the video world, the 5 worlds are based on Harry Potter, Super Nintendo, How to Train Your Dragon, and then 2 others. So here's the crowd that showed up for the grand opening, and in the words of every clickbait bot account on X, tell me what you notice.
Oh, wow. This is it. This is it. Wow. This is crazy. Oh my gosh. Oh, no one's going this way. Wow. This is madness. This is so cool. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love this. Wow. Oh, this is great. Wow. Wow. This is crazy. Wow. Oh my. Wow. This is so cool.
The guy recording the video is very impressed. He's repeatedly exclaiming, wow, this is crazy, as he stares at a bunch of buildings. There's nothing remotely impressive about the buildings, but apparently it's the most awe-inspiring thing he's ever seen. The video does capture something crazy, though, which is that the huge crowds of people running and skipping, and in one case actually jumping and clicking their heels as they descend upon the Harry Potter and Nintendo theme park, is comprised almost entirely of grown adults. There are maybe 3 or 4 kids visible in the crowd. The rest are adults who appear to be in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and sometimes older. I can only imagine being one of the few parents who brought my child to the theme park grand opening on that day, excited to show them the How to Train Your Dragon ride, only to find that there's a 2-hour wait at the roller coaster because a bunch of people who graduated high school in the late 90s had gotten there before me. That's like my kid being forced to wait to play on the swing set at the playground because all the swings are occupied by grown men. It's like if I took my kid to the mall in December to meet Santa, only to find out that there's a 3-hour wait because a bunch of childless adults are taking turns sitting on Santa's lap and telling him that they want a Barbie doll for Christmas. It is a sad state of affairs, in other words. And it only gets sadder when you travel over into the world of Disney adults. There are thousands of videos floating around social media like this one, where we see a group of 40-year-old women, no child in sight, dressed like princesses while they record choreographed TikToks at Disney. Now, there are also, and you can see the video there, there are also many videos like this one, where a grown woman breaks down in tears at the sight of Cinderella's castle at Disney. Watch this.
Now everything's technicolor.
Hey now, this is what dreams are made of. Hey now, this is what dreams.
Now, if you've ever been in a delivery room, you have seen reactions like this. A mother meeting her child for the first time, overwhelmed by the beauty of this new life, overflowing with love and happiness. It's a sacred moment, and that is an appropriate reaction in that context. But that's not what's happening here. This woman is not meeting her child. She is instead seeing a tourist attraction built for a child. And there are many more examples like this that we could play, but the point's probably been made. There are also more practical videos by and for Disney adults. Like this one, for example, giving some tips and tricks for morbidly obese Disney adults who break out in strange, unsightly rashes while pursuing the park. If you have, perusing the park, rather. If you have this issue, then here's some tips for you. Watch.
You've been dying to get the Disney rash? No, probably not, but it does happen. Hey everyone, we're plus size park hoppers and we range in sizes from 2X to 5X. Make sure you like this video and follow us for more plus size Disney tips and tricks. If you don't know what the Disney rash is, consider yourself lucky. It's also known as exercise-induced vasculitis. It can happen when you're exposed to heat and if you're exercising for a long period of time, which are both super common in Disney World because you can walk between 5 and 10 miles a day. The rash typically appears on exposed parts of your lower legs. It can cause an itching and burning sensation and just be downright uncomfortable. First aid recommended using aloe vera and cortisone to ease the symptoms. We've also seen some people put sunblock on their lower legs to try to prevent it. That's something we're going to try on our next trip.
Now, I'm not sure if TikTok is using some kind of new immersive digital technology, but I swear I could smell that video. Very, very strange phenomenon. And when you watch these videos of Disney adults, you may arrive at the inevitable conclusion that they are all mentally ill. Well, this Disney adult says you're right, and she's not afraid to admit it. Watch.
Disney adults have a mental illness. You have to be mentally ill to be a Disney adult. We know. We're completely aware of that. It's not a revelation. No, you really cracked the code there, Sherlock. Quick question though, would you name for me someone who doesn't have some sort of mental illness? Quickly. Surprise! We're all just walking around out here with anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, etc. We just found something to cope with that you seem to have a problem with. Second thing, how is my mental illness any of your business or your problem? How are my coping mechanisms any of your business? It's a hypothetical question. You don't have to answer because it's not. You're a Disney adult. You must really have some childhood trauma. Bingo! You solved it again. And thank God I'm not taking that trauma out on other people. Instead, I'm going to a theme park and dealing with it and being happy by myself. There are a lot worse things I could be doing, honey.
Well, that makes it all the better. If you go to Disney with your children and are annoyed and disturbed by the sight of all the childless adults in attendance, you can rest easy knowing that they're all just using the park as a way to cope with their severe mental illnesses. That should make you more comfortable sharing the park with them, shouldn't it? This is not a small group of people. I mean, as we saw in the video, they're not small physiologically, but they're also not small in quantity. A recent article in Business Insider quotes one former Disney Parks executive who estimates that at any point on any given day, 40 to 50% of park goers are now childless adults. The same article details all the ways that Disney's embracing this change and investing in their new adult fan club. After all, childless adults tend to have more disposable income. So as far as Disney is concerned, the more childless weirdos who visit the park, the better. They have a lot more money to spend on hot dogs and overpriced plastic trinkets. The consequence, of course, is that as the park caters more and more to adults, it will cater less and less to children. This is a trend that can be seen across the entire culture and in many industries. Kids are getting edged out in favor of childless adults with the mentality of children. This is happening with theme parks, with children's entertainment franchises, even with toys. A recent report in the New York Post reveals that adults now account for nearly 30% of global toy sales. And that is, you could argue that adults account for 100% of global toy sales because they're the ones buying the toys. This is saying that 30% of toy sales are for adults buying them for themselves. Last year, adults bought more toys for themselves than any other age group. It's now more common that an adult buys a toy for himself than for a preschooler. And of course, the adults who like to play with toys and go to Disney World dressed like Disney characters will often demand that the rest of us demand to know why the rest of us care. How are they hurting anyone? Well, this is how. Kids cannot compete with adults. If a critical mass of adults become consumers in industries that were once kid-centric, those industries will become increasingly adult-centric. Spaces that were meant for children and families will become spaces for adults without children. And we're seeing this happen all over the place. Fast forward another 10, 15, 20 years, and not only will Disney World be primarily occupied by childless adults, but it'll be considered rude to bring your kids because they ruin the fun for the adults. That's the way this is headed. And this is why we care. It's not just that we're creeped out by the Disney adult types because they're weirdos, although we are and they are. It's also that we as adults with children want to maintain at least some of the spaces in society that were meant for and built for children and families. Most of society is built for adults and caters to adults. There are not many places that families with young children can go without feeling like they're imposing on everybody around them. And now even those few spaces are becoming increasingly adult-oriented, all to cater to grown-ups whose tastes and interests have not matured at all since elementary school. Yeah, we find that frustrating, and justifiably so. It's not that adults can't have fun. It's that an adult's version of fun should grow and evolve as he gets older. I mean, if you're an adult on your own and you have money to spend, which you must if you're going to Disney World, and you're able to buy a plane ticket to anywhere you want to go, which apparently you can because you're going to Disney World, and you have all those options in the entire world, you could go anywhere, do anything as an adult, and you choose to go to Disney World? Of all the places on earth, of all the things you could experience, you want to see a castle. You could go see a real castle. You could go to places to see the ruins of real castles. Instead, you want to see the Disney castle. It's strange. And it's not even that adults can't enjoy things like theme parks and even toys and playgrounds. It's that as an adult, you're supposed to experience those things again with your child. You're supposed to pass down those experiences to your child. It's the eternal rite of passage. You take the things that you loved as a child and you give them to your child and you experience them again in the process of giving them to your child, but also in the process you're letting them go as you pass those things and those experiences on to your child. The problem is that adults today cling jealously to their childhood interests. They don't pass them down. They don't introduce a new generation to them. They hold on to them and say, no, this is still mine. This is mine. This is where the millennial obsession with nostalgia comes from. You know, for as long as my generation have been adults, we've been obsessed with nostalgia for things that we enjoyed as kids. Nostalgia has become its own multi-billion-dollar industry thanks to us, thanks to millennials. No other generation prior to millennials has had this ridiculous obsession. It's nostalgic. I just want to live in the 90s forever. But nostalgia for your own childhood naturally melts away when you have children of your own. And that's good and healthy because you can't spend your entire adult life pining for the days when you were in fourth grade. That's not healthy. That's not a path to success. Now, parents have nostalgia too. As our kids grow older, we're nostalgic for when they were little children, not for when we were little kids. So I'll give just one example of how this works or how this is supposed to work. There's a park near my house where I grew up, and the park is close to the airport. And when I was a kid, my parents would take us to play on the playground. It's just like a small little, humble little playground. But it's near the airport, so you could watch the planes land. The planes would fly overhead pretty close, and it was fun as a kid to go. And as I grew older, into my late teens and early 20s, I used to drive by that park on the way to work and that sort of thing. And I would look at this park and I'd feel a deep sense of nostalgia. And I would long to go back to the simpler days. But then when I had kids and they were old enough to appreciate it, I took them to that park. I was looking forward to like taking them. It's one of those things. I did this when I was a kid, bring my kids to it. 20 years earlier, I stood there in awe looking up at the planes while my dad stood beside me. And now I was the dad standing beside my own kids who had a similar look of awe. I was passing on those experiences. The park is no longer a memory that belongs to me. Now it belongs to my kids. And now when I'm back in the area and on the rare occasion that I drive by that same park, as I actually did somewhat recently, I'm overcome with a nostalgia again, but not for when I was 5 years old and my parents took me there. Now I have nostalgia for when my oldest kids were 5 years old and I took them there. I let go of my childhood attachment to this park. Now it's a new kind of attachment. I'm not an adult still wishing that I was 5 years old. I'm an adult reminiscing about the wild-eyed wonder and innocence of my own kids. This is how it's supposed to work. This is the natural and healthy course of things. This is the process of growth and maturity that Disney adults are refusing. Although admittedly, having said all that, I have no interest in taking my kids to Disney World anyway. Theme parks are hot, crowded, and miserable, whether you're a parent or a childless adult. I'd rather be thrown in a wood chipper than take my kids to Disney World, frankly. So I don't have a lot of skin in this particular game, but it's the principle of it. And that's why, regardless, Disney adults are today canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Panicans turn on President Trump over Iran. Clayton Kershaw hoists Dodgers Pride Night with its own petard. It's beautiful to see. And Justin Bieber might be placed in a conservatorship. Check it out on The Michael Walsh Show.